Welcome to the Bayesian Conspiracy. I'm Inyash Brodsky.
I'm Steven Zuber.
And we have a guest with us today.
Hi, I'm Rikard.
Rikard, welcome. You have a really cool way of correctly pronouncing your name in the ethnic sense.
Yeah.
Can you say that?
It's Rikard, so it's Swedish.
So cool. Are you from Sweden and born in Sweden?
Yeah. I live in Germany, and I moved to Germany 4 years ago, something like that.
So we met at Vibe Camp, and I found out that you were in the European time zones. I was pretty surprised because there's no way I could have told with your accent that you were not like straight up American.
Right. I think I had an English teacher from Hawaii at some point. We all learned in school to speak with like a BBC English, and he was like, you can do whatever you want. And I grew up with American television, basically. So
nice. The only hint was that you look like a Viking out of Norse mythology.
Well, there's none of those in Minnesota or anything, right?
Not really, no. Yeah, as somebody who can't really grow proper facial hair, I'm always envious of the beard that can eventually become Gandalf beard with enough time.
Yeah, once you lose your hair, you get a really good motivation to look like shit for a while it grows out.
That's the plus side. Is my great grandfather is getting haircuts well into his 90s, so I think I'll have a head of hair even if I can't grow a beard. So
awesome. Yeah, you want to trade?
We'll be in the middle.
Maybe I can have the awesome beard and all the hair.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And you get nothing. It works great. I wanted to mention, I think I met you briefly at Vibe Camp, but what I saw was your recitation of some poetry while being sprayed with a hose.
Yeah.
That was epic.
Yeah, thank you. I mixed Swedish and English there, so like alternating stanzas.
Yeah. What poem was that?
I try to remember the name in English, but it's something like to the tune of a folk song. It's like it's supposed to be to a folk song or something, but I've never heard it that way. And it's just like a love poem.
It was great. I wish we had a recording of that. Yeah.
Describe it briefly, Stephen.
I can't do it justice. I mean, it's like it says on the tin. There was a handful of events of do this or this while I spray you with a hose.
Yeah. Well, why were you so very impressed with his particular rendition?
Oh, you made it look like it was a scripted thing from a movie where they do like a super raining scene or whatever, and you weren't phased at all when he would turn the hose up like to spray upwards towards your face. You kind of just like screamed into it like a microphone. It was great.
Yeah, but I think that's. I mean, we'll come back to like the whole idea of flinching, but like the thing that he was doing. I mean, someone was reciting that famous speech from Hamlet, and at the opportune times, like where you really want to hit a point home, then he'd spray the reciter in the face with a hose. So I was just kind of waiting for that the whole time, and like the way I braced myself, just like leading into it, like going forward. Okay, here we go. And I think I kind of got the sprayer to.
You made him flinch.
Well, yeah, I mean, he was a bit mesmerized, but like, I mean, snake charming is what you call it in boxing, right? Like you make them look at what you're doing and stop thinking about what they're doing. That wasn't intentional. I was just like surprised because I was expecting like any moment now he's just gonna throw a spray up my nose or something at an opportune time, but he let me off the hook easily.
We met at Vibe Camp, as Stephen said, and you were running a number of like wrestling events and physical how to just fight other people events there.
Yeah. Exactly.
What was the event specifically? Because I don't remember what it was. I didn't attend. I didn't make it that time.
Okay. My main background is in grappling. I started when I was adult, so I'm not by any means an expert, but I'm good enough to like teach a beginner's class. So I like to do that. I did that last Vibe Camp too. It was a lot of fun. I did it at Jess Camp too, which was 2 months ago now or something. For Vibe Camp, so first of all, I wanted to mix it up a little bit just for myself. But second of all, I kind of noticed like there's this thing when you put beginners together to do any sort of form of fighting, they tend to go a bit too hard, and it's really hard to like make them pace themselves. And like what you want to do is have people focus on technique, special movements. Like it doesn't really matter if the other person gets on top of you because maybe they're just stronger or more athletic or whatever, or they got lucky. What I want to see is like you doing the things we practiced and like playing with it and be a bit more dancey and a bit less fighty with it with your partner, trying to find that kind of thing. So what I did this year was I started with a workshop that I called Fluid Movement on the Ground. And that came out of an idea because I was at Jess Camp. I was hanging out with some people, and one of them were like kind of doing yoga, like in a living room situation, just like stretching out. It's called a plow pose in yoga, like when you're on your shoulders and you have your feet over your head or something. It could be plow pose. It could be something else. I'm sure someone will hear this and correct us. But basically, I told her, "Oh, do you know what a Granby roll is?" it's not a forward roll or a backward roll. It's sort of like a weird sideways roll. And I figured like, oh, she's like a super physical person. She's does yoga. Of course she could do this. Like I'll just tell her what it is, show her once, and then she'll figure it out. And it was kind of hard. Like, and then when she got it, she was like, oh, that's really, really cool. And I realized a lot of people do a lot of kinds of movements. Like they might be doing dancing. They might be doing yoga. Maybe if you're doing acro yoga, you're a bit closer to this, but even not then, because like you're very much moving towards static positions. So this sort of like dynamic movement on the ground, like with your shoulders on the ground, or like not taking your hips off the ground. That's actually a pretty cool thing you can teach people. And it's also a huge part of grappling, BJJ, judo, wrestling, MMA too. So I just made a workshop for that first, where I really just focus on like, now we're just doing the movements. Let's do it in a controlled way, dancey way. Like let's work with a partner and make them move, and then you move, blah blah blah, to prime people into like, hey, you can do it as just like a fun way to move around. And then afterwards, I did a regular ass grappling workshop. Okay, let's do this similar things, but now the focus is to control and submit an opponent. I think that worked okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like at the end of the day, there's going to be a good couple of boys who get really excited about the prospect of like getting to try the choke that they just did. And you just look at it. Usually in a gym situation, what you will do is we'll try to not pit beginners against each other. Unless we unless we like want a bit of a show. We don't actually do that. Like there's a famous jiu-jitsu meme of like, it's like a lobster fight, like a cockfight, like people, black belts and purple belts, standing around and like pitting two white belts against each other, because it's always fun. If you go to a tournament, if you go to a jiu-jitsu tournament, which is most like a lot of adults, don't go to the black belts. Don't watch the black belt division unless you're really interested in this thing. Watch the white belt division, because that's where things just get things go haywire, and they try shit that's like, oh, that's never going to work. Oh, it worked. Oh, wow. Okay. Glad no one broke their necks.
Oh my god.
But people go at it.
Why do they not go at it so much when like you're in the black belt division?
Oh well, I mean, I don't know if you want kids soccer or basketball, like any sports really, like, you know, at the highest level, it's such a tactical game of like inches and like doing whatever. Whereas like if everyone's a beginner, like one team can win by like 15 goals in soccer, or like one can just outclass the other, or it can turn into like a complete melee of no one's in control, but everyone's just really, 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 really going for it the whole time. It's that kind of entertaining. And the thing with jiu-jitsu and wrestling is, especially jiu-jitsu, wrestling is a lot more fun due to the rules, especially college wrestling.
And it's because like they don't know how to counter the other person just going all crazy at it, whereas like a black belt would easily turn that off.
Yeah, it's more like whenever you go for something, you create openings for other stuff. And black belts it's more like chess, you know, like they can make a move without like breaking their ranks in these ways, whereas like beginners, like they might be going for something, and in the process of that they might mess up the move or make a huge opening for the other person. It just becomes more dynamic, I guess.
Sounds actually really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I did this at a conference, a tech conference in October, and because I've been doing this at these tech conferences where, like, you know, there's enough people who want to like head out to a patch of grass and just like wrestle for a bit. It's always fun to like get that started. This time I actually rented a gym for them. So I was kind of reffing the matches, mostly grappling matches. And I was just going to be there to like make sure no one does something too stupid that's going to tweak a knee or something. And also just being like the arbiter of like, okay, the other person's given up, just, you know, keeping people safe, and also like giving it the semblance of this is a real match with a referee. But me and the gym owner, we exchanged so many looks. We're like, Jesus fucking Christ, what did he do? Oh my God! Like, oh, you're taken aback and like, oh shit, oh fuck! You exchange like, what the fuck did just happen?
And they try shit that like a black belt would never try, because someone else who's very skilled would.
Yeah, I mean, these are not even white belts. These are people like they've seen it once, or like seen me do it, and now they want to try. And like the things they come up with, not the things that you'd come up with.
Neat.
Have you seen these, like, you know, what is like 600 ELO chess matches?
No,
it's like people like grandmasters commentate. I don't know. It's like really, really low ranked players playing each other, and you can see their games like online somewhere, and it's just like, it's mayhem. You're like, oh, checkmate. Oh no, fuck, you lost. No, wait, like how did you lose? Wait, no, you're in the lead. Why did you give up? It's like yeah, it's like that. It's a lot of fun.
I'm suddenly much more interested in seeing amateurs try to do things.
Yeah. I mean, like the injury risk sometimes makes you makes me take it
Yeah.
back. But I mean, luckily nothing's ever happened.
I think we've kind of buried the lead here because we haven't actually said what we're talking about yet. We are talking with you because I was very fascinated by this. You call yourself a consensual violence, what is it, enthusiast?
Evangelist,
Evangelist?
evangelist.
Evangelist.
Yeah.
Okay. What are you talking about? What is this consensual violence and why is it a thing that you are evangelizing?
I mean, so I have a blog called Drunken Masterpieces. I try to use the term combat sports rather than
Okay.
martial arts because martial arts
Okay.
has like all these different connotations, like traditions and like a specific fighting system, blah blah blah. Whereas for me,
Hmm.
combat sports is a lot about like you try to emulate as realistic as possible some sort of fighting within a specific rule set. For me, it's more of a combat sport the closer you get to like actually going full force quite often
Hmm.
with each other. MMA is sort of the epitome of this, but like I mean, if you do HEMA, like historical martial arts, European martial arts with swords and armor and everything, I count that in combat sports too. And if you do war reenactment where you actually try shit rather than like being scripted, then like that would be a combat sport for me. Or that's consensual violence. This idea of like it's not duke it out, like it's not about settling scores
Okay.
necessarily, like stepping outside a bar. But even though like I'm not necessarily against that, but it's more like two people practicing and deciding to do violence on each other in a way where you actually try to take care of each other usually.
So what's the point of this consensual violence?
What's the point of meditation? What's the point of reading? I don't know. It's like it's just that I feel like I spent so much of my life being not just uninterested in this, but also like kind of against it. Probably more against it than uninterested, to be fair, because I
Hmm.
probably had sort of perverse interest in it. But I think most people do. There's a famous grappling coach, and he had a little rant about like if a fight breaks out, no one's not watching. If someone sees two people fighting, they will be turn and look at it, even if
Yeah.
it's like they're safe and they're not particularly interested, or if it's just like on a TV or something. Like when something resembling a fight breaks out, people tend to watch. There's something innate with it. I think it's very like undeniable, right? It's like a passion thing. Like it's something that not just humans have done for our entire existence, but like a lot of mammals do. Like they fight, like they might fight, like actually go to war against each other over like an alpha position or over territory, or they might just wrestle as like dogs wrestle and cats wrestle, especially
As young
as young. Yeah,
kittens.
exactly. And it's like part of learning. It's like something that humans left to their own devices, like special little boys will do.
This is the thing I'm most connected with when we were talking at Vibe Camp. You said that when you were younger, you like looked down on this sort of thing with
Mhm.
disdain, and I absolutely did too. And I think it's a common nerd thing. So I would. It's probably very common in the rational circles if this is the case.
Yeah.
Stephen, did you have the same thing?
Of looking down on combat.
Combat and the sort of like fighting in general, like it's beneath us. It's not a thing we do anymore, right? Like, why would I ever participate in this sort of thing?
I think I had an interesting segment of my teen years where I wouldn't say that was like integral, but it was important. And there's something about it's not quite turning your mind off because your mind is super on, but you're not. I was saying this like I'm an expert or I've done it a ton, but that's not exactly the case. Well, short answer, no. I don't have quite that sentiment. I think that there's something
Okay.
tranquil about being in that. Luckily, I've never been like in a fight for my life or anything, but
Mhm.
uh, there's no analytics. I mean, it's all subconscious, but there's not a lot of thinkiness involved in the moment. It's just reacting to each instant as it's coming up, and there's a sort of like inherent flow state in that. So no, I think there's a lot of value in it.
Did you? You said it played an important part in your life. Like, did you train, or did you like have it thrust upon you by like bullies or something, or were you like with a group of people that got in fights here and there, or like what was your?
A bit of all of the above.
Okay.
I was bullied when I was younger, especially through like elementary school. You did some formal, some medium formal, and some informal training. But there was also just a group of us. It was never like a legit fight club, but I think just a bunch of pubescent hormonal teenage boys. When anyone had the inclination to throw down a bit, there would be an occasion for it, and it
Form
was
a circle,
cathartic.
let him duke it, let people duke it out,
Yeah,
kind of
exactly.
thing, and making sure that like no one kicks someone when they're down or something stupid, or like no one starts like if it's two people, then it's those two, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was never unsportsmanlike.
Yeah.
and there was sort of an implicit like let's go for body blows, let's not try and break each other's jaws or hit each other in
Oh,
the
okay.
face.
I wonder if this is why you're so well adjusted.
Well, there may be something to that someone could make a case for, but I'm not sure exactly how much of a role this played. I definitely, looking back, did not have like the most wholesome group of friends. Maybe I'd be better adjusted if I did, but it's hard to say.
You seem much less neurotic than most people that I know in my social circles.
Oh, good, then it's working.
I mean, I do think that's sort of why I also try to impress this upon, the more geeky crowd at a place like Vibe Camp. I don't know if you've noticed that, Enias, but like this year I got like there was like a weird energy around me. Like people kind of deferred decisions to me, and like I got a lot of compliments for being like, oh, you're such a tough guy. Like I'm not. I'm very much like a bullied kid, and I was like I was a bit of a jock. Like I was never unathletic, but like I also didn't seek violence as a recourse, and I didn't have like much power in like most masculine environments. And now I can kind of sometimes feel my like what I think of like as my fellow nerds be a bit like hesitant around me, like, oh, sorry, didn't mean to make you mad. I'm like, I'm not,
Oh,
absolutely not. Like that's not
yeah.
that's not on the radar here, but like I understand. But that's also feels like a glimpse into that, like, oh, you're sort of nervous in this social interaction in a weird way, which is, I think, like if you want to talk about neuroticism, I do think that I noticed after starting training and getting to a point where I'm like, I'm not pretending I can go out and like just fight anyone at a bar and get away with it, or like that you should, or that like I could disarm someone with a knife or anything. But like, if I'm in a place at Vibe Camp, if someone gets like weird or unruly, I don't know, like my priors are pretty low that I'd be in any real danger of them hurting me, and that kind of helps in a lot of social situations, because there's so often like I've noticed, I didn't think of it before, but I noticed after, there's quite often like a moment in any sort of argument where you go, wait, is this safe? And being able to go like, no, of course it's this safe. God, Jesus, like this is not a problem at all. That actually helps to not like, you don't have to de-escalate necessarily. Like you can stay in a certain energy longer if you want. You don't have to worry so much. And like I think there's a baseline unconscious worry that you get rid of too, when you're like, well, worst thing that can happen is they punch me in the face. And I know what it feels like to get punched in the face.
Yeah.
And if you've never had that, getting punched in the face seems like the scariest thing in the world. And it is the first time. And just
I
like
remember my
having
first
been really
time
helped.
being really hit in the face with someone like who's trying to hurt me, and it was surprisingly discombobulating. I'm like, oh, I've been in fights. Okay, this will be fine. And then there's this daze, and then before that daze is over, the next blow comes in. It's one thing to have done some kind of play fighting and stuff, but then hit to the face jostles your brain a little bit, unless you're.
Who was it that was really trying to hurt you, and why?
Some random asshole, and I thought I was tough shit, and he was walking down the path in front of us, like leaving school, and blowing cigarette smoke in our faces, and it's like, hey man, can you blow that shit somewhere else? And he throws the cigarette down and starts hitting me.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
First of all, mad props for fucking confronting him. That's awesome.
Well,
how old were you in this?
It would have been junior high, so somewhere between 13 and 15.
Right.
Give or take. Yeah, I'm really bad at my autobiographical memory, but since I remember the location, I know how old I must have been roughly. No, I mean, I don't think it was worth confronting this guy. He was. I think I was more posturing than doing anything brave, right?
I mean, it was definitely brave, and I think it was really cool of you to say that to him, and like not just let him get away with it without some kind of cost.
Well, he didn't pay a cost, really. It's not like he totally whooped my ass and left. He got a few blows in, and then I had a friend who was much more practiced in like actual violence, and he stood by because he knew that I started it. And then I said, like, hey, can you give me a hand here? And then he jumped in and got the guy off me. It wasn't. I don't think there's anything particularly gallant. I can't remember really exactly, but I don't think my motivations were like, I'm going to make the world a better place. I think it was more just like, I'm a tough guy. This guy who was roughly my size, and I'm a small guy. I'm 5'8". I don't know. I was probably 120 pounds ish back then, and I was like, oh, this will be a breeze. And no, it turns out that if somebody like is fighting with the intent to hurt you, it's very different than when they're fighting to work off steam or kind of like exercise, right? So it was a different circumstance.
What's the difference between those two kinds of fighting?
In one, you're not in any danger, like really, and like in all the informal little fight clubs that we did, again, there was no, like Ricard said, no one was going to get kicked when they were down. No one was going to get bloodied up. It was just kind of like striking a punching bag that will hit you back. Yeah. Then the other one is like an actual danger situation. I mean,
So had you been doing your little fight clubs before this, and was that part of like what emboldened you to say that?
yeah. And then I learned that there's a huge difference.
Did that change your attitude going forward of like when you're going to confront people when feeling like real violence for the first time?
Yeah, I'm sure it did. I can't remember if I had like an awakening moment or not, but I've certainly been more cautious about approaching people who are just being annoying. I used to take the train into work to go downtown, and some people would play music on their phone out loud. And those, if I'd never been hit as a kid, maybe I would have told these people to, turn that shit off or give them, a cheap pair of headphones or something. But now I just let them do it because it's like, you know what, they're probably hoping someone's going to ask them to stop because they're looking for a fight, maybe. So I wouldn't say it made me more timid, but it made me more cognizant of the fact that some people are ready to engage in a kind of violence that you might not be able to like dust yourself off and go home after.
Yeah.
This feels like a failure of society to me. Like there should be an understood norm, I think, that like if you're in a group setting like that with a lot of people, if someone is playing music loud and someone asks them to like turn it down, if they get unruly about it, like 7 other guys around you should all stand up with you at the same time.
I mean, that'd be cool.
That would be cool.
That would be a nice coordination of society.
God, I was so disappointed when I was listening to Blocked and Reported recently. I made the mistake of changing the topic to non-consensual violence here, and we got off on a bit of a tangent. If you'd like to hear that tangent, it is available to subscribers and Patreons in the paid feed. It goes on for about 6.5 minutes. For everyone else, we return back to the show.
So it's not a good policing mechanism outside, or like in situations where like violence could potentially escalate almost unboundedly, but it can be a good policing mechanism in scenarios where like, well, at least everyone knows no one here would pull a weapon, like, a wedding or something, depending on what wedding, I guess. But usually like there's just a sort of known quantity to it. But no, I mean, the benefit is mostly just you learning to be relaxed, especially like in the presence of touch. I think I notice a lot of flinching in Vibe Camp and Teapot. People get like, you hold someone in a way like you don't shake their hand, like you touch someone on the shoulder a bit, like if you just like rustle them a bit, they get like super stiff and like weird or something. Like anything that feels like this would be super normal if we were 13 and we're on the same sports team, that can be like super jarring to people sometimes, which I understand too. But it's just like I'm getting more and more divorced from that because I'm like, it's actually pretty nice to be fairly physically close to each other.
Had you found that previously, before your consensual violence evangelism and interest, that you had also been like very closed off and awkward around touch? Because I mean, I certainly always have been.
Maybe, I'm not sure, because I mean, so first of all, I'm European. Like being a jock, like let's make it clear, like being a jock in Europe doesn't confer status. I was bullied as a jock, but I'm fairly used to physically tackling other people. I played European handball and soccer mostly. And European handball is like a mix of soccer and basketball, but it's more physical than both of them. It has like rugby-ish tendencies. You're around a bunch of other young boys, and there's a lot of like bashing into each other half accidentally, like while on a sports field. That felt pretty normal. So I wasn't too flinchy when I first started, I think. It's funny now how unflinchy I am. I don't think I was super flinchy before, but now it's like it's almost ridiculous. What's that? Curtis Yarvin compared rationalist to some like animal that doesn't feel fear. Quokkas,
Oh,
yeah.
the quokkas?
You know, you can just pick him up and then put him down. Like I'm like that. Like now they have people who come up like, "Can I lift you?" Like, yeah. Like you don't have to ask. Like some people will just like lift me and then like they'll put me down. Like, and if they put me down on top of my head, I'm not going to fall on my head because I will figure that out. Because I'm very, very used to being picked up and slammed down. And that's actually pretty cool. Like I'm very used to having like people in my face with like hands and stuff, and I'd be like, "Well, you're not actually in punching distance," and can just stagger my stance, and now I don't necessarily feel too threatened by someone doing something weird or someone moving too close or doing like a weird move. Like, drunk people, like they will do weird movements that aren't meant to be aggressive, but they can come off as super aggressive. And just being like, "This is fine, I don't care," and like not flinching, it's actually can be pretty cool.
Yeah.
As far as the flinchiness thing, There's definitely a difference, like you said, on a sports team where, somebody claps your shoulder and kind of gives you a jostle. That context is different than, I guess, a stranger, obviously, just coming up out of the blue would be startling for most
Yeah.
people. But even, with people that you kind of know, and again, I'm 5'8", most people who will, clap their hand on my shoulder are going to be taller than me. And there's definitely like, oh, okay, if I wanted to make them let me go, I might not be able to. And there's kind of like this, I don't want to say like immediate fear reaction, but it is
Yeah.
not that. Just an awareness of like the fact that, oh, if this were to turn violent, I would lose. And that's a subconscious, immediate background thought,
Yeah, no, and I think, and I made this point recently in a post too. Your capacity to like love and help and be a friend is sort of circumscribed by your fear. You can be good to people, but only like to the point where you can yourself feel reasonably safe. And this is a good example of that, right? Even if you want to go up and de-escalate a situation, that could turn a non-violent situation into a violent situation, right? But then also even in violence, what you see with people who train a lot, like they can de-escalate violence, like with violence, right? Like if someone is swinging really hard, like they can bop him a few times in the face and like maybe have him slow down or get like a bit confused or something. Or if if people know how to grapple, what they'll usually do is like someone's swinging and they'll be hopefully get through their back or something and then just hold them down and like no one's getting hurt anymore. That's also a form of de-escalation, right? It's ideally what law enforcement does when they can, right? They take someone and hold them down and handcuff them rather than beat them to a bloody pulp. And that's also useful, right? But because things often go here, like this is what, when I talk about fighting with people at an event like Vibe Camp, there's so much about like, oh, I would like to defend myself if A, B, C happen. It's like, well, that's not necessarily the point. It's sort of like almost a rationalist thing, right? Like, how do I best approach various situations in my life? And for me, it's more like, it's a bit like meditation, right? It's like, well, how, like if you approach meditation as like, I'm going to get enlightened and I'm going to get super chill and I'm going to like improve my mental health or whatever, may or may not work. Probably won't work very often. With fighting, it's like, well, that like the things that you want to prepare for are usually pretty unlikely. If you want to reduce your risk of damage over a lifetime, then training fighting is not a good call, probably. Like unless you're a police officer, like you'll probably get more injured in training over 10 years than you will have a chance to defend yourself with it over 10 years, as compared to just like butting out or like handing over a wallet when you can. But like the benefits are far more, to me, it's a natural way of engaging other people that is lost in modern society. That a lot of people, maybe not everyone. I've always been like, everyone should do this. Now I'm more coming around to it like, hey, maybe not everyone should do this, but you might be a person who should do this and you might not know it. And if you are that person, it's going to feel like coming home. It's like being raised in like a super non-touchy household and there's no PDA anywhere. And then you meet your first girlfriend who's like really loves you and like loves touching you. And you have like these touchy-feely friends and you're just like, oh shit, this is what I need because I turns out I'm this kind of person. And I thought like, well, this is not what civilized people do, but it turns out it's what I need because it's natural to me.
You mentioned about, if somebody's good at grappling, they can just disarm the situation by basically just getting the person down on the ground and then that person's lost. Like the violence is over. If anyone has never had the experience of being in a grappling, and you can do this in controlled, safe environments like dojos and stuff or whatever, or just a friend who knows, and they want to show you a move, but it's surprising how easy it is for you to be put in a completely helpless situation. And that awakens something in my brain. I'm assuming most people, where it's just like something primal of, oh shit, I've lost. Like they could do whatever they want. And it's quite a moment. And I also wanted to just sanity check something that I've had in the background. I've got a coworker who is a martial arts enthusiast, and he did like a short presentation for the company on self-defense basics. And I rolled my eyes at a lot of it because the self-defense basics for the average person is get the hell out of there.
For sure.
But then he lost all legitimacy with me when he said, here's how you defend yourself against somebody with a knife.
Okay.
That's the reaction I was looking for. But because my basic gut check on does somebody know what they're talking about when they're demonstrating martial arts is if they say, here's how you handle somebody with a knife, and they show you anything other than running away, they're full of shit.
I don't have first-hand knowledge. I haven't defended myself against a knife. I really want to get I think that's something we should do for like a vibe event at some point. Just get a bunch of white t-shirts and a whiteboard marker or something, just like to play with that
Mhm.
and play that out, and like play different tactics just for like the hell of it. But I watch a decent amount of martial arts YouTube. There's a series called the Ultimate Self-Defense Championship that is on its second season now. They made a first season, and like it's just a bunch of like scenario-based, realistic self-defense training. But it's all like very scenarios because like self-defense is just it's a billion things that can happen that you don't know. They had one instance called Shank Tank, which was like you're in a room with a person with a full intent to hurt you with a knife. You have to make it through 30 seconds or 45 seconds or something. And these are lifelong, well-trained martial artists. Like some of them, quite a few of them have like professional MMA fights under their belt, and it's a disaster. Like it's just it doesn't work. Like this season, I don't know if fuck it. I'm plugging this thing. So go watch the Ultimate Self-Defense Championship. 100%, it's amazing. You should check it out. But this time when they do Shank Tank, a guy actually pulls guard. And if you don't know what that is, that's something in jiu-jitsu where you lie down on your back. The cool thing about this is you have your legs to defend you, so you can kind of kick and just like keep someone away with your legs. And the guy actually makes it through one of these Shank Tank instances because he just gets stabbed in like the calves and stuff by doing that.
Still sounds terrible.
Oh no, yeah. It's like don't defend yourself against a knife. And this is like a high degree black belt and also a pro MMA fighter. Take everything with a grain of salt, right? I don't do self-defense seminars. Like if I people like I do grappling, people are like here's how would I do this in a real fight? You would like don't like. We're doing this once. The goal here is to get you to start training yourself and maybe get interested in training, or like think 5 years down the road when you're looking for a sport, maybe martial arts is something for me. I'm teaching you things that seem like realistic and they fit together, but this is just one class. This is like an hour. You will learn nothing meaningful in an hour. Apart from when I get you guys to spar, hopefully I can teach you that nothing that you think is going to happen is going to happen. A bunch of other shit's going to happen.
I really liked your post, Defense Against the Dark Arts is just dark arts, where you point out like when you get in an actual fight, it's just chaos and randomness, and hopefully the guy with better training can get more lucky on the margin.
Yeah, and people go like, oh, like I wouldn't want to wrestle someone. I'll just like elbow them in the spine. I'm like you no, like if you want to defend against wrestling, you need to learn how to wrestle. If you want to defend against boxing, you need to learn to boxing and slip and move your feet. Like it's just like I love the sort of arrogance sometimes of intellectuals being like, I can think myself out of this thing, where trained professionals spend their entire lives trying to play this game and have like millions of dollars on the line in being the best to play this game. And people feel like, well, I could probably negate it in a second with just whatever. Even guns, like people are like, oh, I'm going to pull a gun. It's like, well, how close is the person to you? Because people don't, I mean, people imagine like someone's gonna like come running at you with a knife at like 20 paces. Like maybe you can pull your Glock. I don't know, but odds are someone's gonna like crowd you a bit in like a corner and then get violent, or like come around a corner when you don't expect it. Well, now you're basically in a grappling exchange, and like if they can like pin you down or take you down or hold your hands or something, you won't be able to draw. I love that you think that you figured something out, but maybe put some of it to the test. Is my attitude to this.
And you mentioned the Shank Tank videos. I've seen at least videos like that, yeah, where it's professional fighters, and then they've got a guy with like it's not like a marker, but it's some way of showing like here's where I made contact. And yeah, within 20 seconds they've been hit 16 times with the blade, and it's like, yeah, your ability to punch and dodge is not going to counter this blade at all, unless you're really, really good. And I'm really really
there's
bad.
Also a YouTube channel called Armchair Violence. It's like way more nerdy, and I think like if you're more like in the teapot crowd, like he might convince you about a few of these things, because he's like very data driven and very engineering. I think he's an engineering major or something. He actually has a long episode that's super not safe for life about knife fighting and the concepts behind it, to the best of his knowledge. Like he's not an expert Navy SEAL or anything, but he has a huge compilation of YouTube videos of actual real knife violence. And it's like, here's how things tend to happen. And the thing about these is like, I think like if you have any sort of conception of like what you would do in a real fight, go and watch some fight videos and look for the things that you think you do and see how they pan out, because they usually don't pan out very well. Like the guy I was talking about before, that's like, could get a bit unruly. Like we got like in a very like heated argument because he was like saying like, oh, the best boxers, they could beat anyone in MMA, because like he's just old school guy. It's like, oh, all these MMA, they just like go to the ground and do faggy stuff basically, was he was saying, and I was like, well, it's because it works. It's like regardless of what you think of it. Besides the homophobia, it's like you're also wrong. He's like, no, because what the boxer would do is this: they would step away. I'm like, please go and watch any MMA, any early MMA. Like I believe you if you can put something forward where like this happens regularly, because what I've seen through like hundreds of hours of training and like training with good I'm not a great wrestler. I train with some fairly good boxers, like not world class or anything. But if I get tired of them, I take them down. If I get tired of being punched, I'm like, fuck it, I'm just gonna take these guys down, and it usually works until a few months in when they get wise to it and get better at defending. But then it still kind of negates a lot of their boxing. I don't think I have the end all be all answer to this, but all my empirical data speaks in one direction with some nuance, right? Obviously, like you can definitely get hit going in for a takedown. You can definitely get knocked out. It happens. But it's like the empirical data that I've seen and experienced and collected all speaks to the idea that like, well, actually, if you're just boxing, you're going to get your leg kicked and you're going to get taken down probably if you don't know how to deal with that. And the same with knife fighting. People imagine I would just kick someone in the groin. Go and look. Go and watch the videos and look how much that happens. Go and think through it. Like, hey, this is part of the Defense Against the Dark Arts article, right? It's like, I would kick someone in the balls. Okay. Have you ever watched Thai boxing, Muay Thai? Or like, I would poke someone in the eyes. It's like, well, can you land a jab? Like, can you land a full fist somewhere in someone's face? If not, what makes you think you could get 2 fingers to someone's eyes?
Yeah, a lot of the armchair combat philosophizing or navel gazing is just imagining a very compliant
but it's also very Hollywood, right?
To kick somebody in the balls, they've got to be standing legs to the sides and let you swing your leg. And it's like in a real fight, they're not going to just stand there and wait for your foot to connect. And they're probably not going to be standing with their feet to the side. They're going to be standing 1 foot behind the other where their balls are inaccessible.
But I mean, real fighting is extremely un-Hollywood. The same way, I don't know if you've seen these, like Insider has like medieval war or like ancient war expert rates like movie battles. People always ask me, why do they just smash into each other and start like stabbing each other? How would you tell who's who? And he's like, no, they wouldn't. That's a reasonable criticism. The ancients aren't idiots. They thought of this. Like, this is not how things happen. Like, people don't just smash into spears. Horses don't just jump right into swords. Like, none of these things happen, and it can't really happen if you think about it for 2 seconds. And a lot of like movie violence is like that too, right? It's like, like a blood sport. Like, you land like 3 spinning head kicks in a row, and the guy just stands there being like a bit rocked. I'm like, it's like if that looks believable, you don't even have a body. I think people like there's a suspension of disbelief. Like, oh, if you get hit really hard, you would feel this way, and that's not at all what it anything I felt like. What I can tell you is like, regardless of what Steven says, like being hit in the face with malicious intent is different from like any other kind of hitting. That's true too. But at the end of the day, you react sort of as you think you would react, only usually dumber to everything. Like if someone kicks you really hard in the leg or in the stomach, you just think of at some point where something hit you in the stomach, like you got hit with a ball in the stomach or something. How did you react? That's how you would react. Including like, if you get tackled in sports or something, but the play is still going, you will get up and you will be hurt after, usually, unless like you're really, really seriously hurt. And that's something that happens in fighting too. People imagine like, oh, I'm going to land a good punch and then they'll fold over and die. It's like, no. Why would they do that?
You don't even feel the pain until a minute later.
Yeah. Or even if you do, like, there's definitely a bit of a delay to it. But yeah. But yeah, now we're still like back at the realness of violence.
I want to really apologize because I brought up non-consensual violence and we got all sidetracked on that. And we were supposed to talk about consensual violence. I would like to bring it back to, and I only mostly apologize because, as you said, apparently this is a thing that just happens where people always bring this up and think about like actual fighting, and you're like, no, we're not focusing on that. So I guess I am a startling example of exactly that thing happening.
It's a good illustration, right? And this happens all the time when I teach. People go like, what would I do if? I'm like, I don't know. We can play it out. But if we play out everything you think of what would you do if, we'll never get out of here. I wrote one called Don't Optimize. If someone comes in like this, and this happens all the time, someone's like, oh, what would I do if? And like, how does this sport fit into this? And people say like, do you think I should focus on striking or grappling? I'm like, yes, you should just train. Like, you'll be fine. the simplicity of the process is almost like insulting to intellectuals sometimes. The people who are constantly asking for like a bunch of details are the complete beginners because they imagine like the reason it's not working is for some like abstract detail. And the best way to treat them usually is like, answer the questions, respect them, but also kind of treat them as kids who's like, I'm trying to figure out this. I'm like, great, just keep coming. You'll get better. And it's less about your thinky optimization process and more about just showing up. Fighting is kind of cerebral. There's a lot of decision making to it, and there's a lot of strategy and whatever. So it's like it's a little bit of a nerd trap in that sense. But there was some people at Jess Camp who were very like they asked a lot of questions and like, oh, we modified the game to be like this. I'm like, great, that's fine. I don't necessarily care as long as you're playing a game and they're like they have an explanation for why they think this is an improvement. I'm like, that's fine because like as long as you train, it will probably work. People spend a lot of time trying to both figure out how to get better at the specific game, but also how would this fit into overall self-defense. And as you get better, that fades a lot more. Okay. If you want to get better at like realistic self-defense, you might go to something like Krav Maga, which is hit or miss kind of thing. Not every gym is great, but the problem with that, with like Krav Maga, for example, like scenario-based self-defense or Aikido or something, is that it's very systematic and there's not a lot of sparring. And the beauty of combat sports, not martial arts, it's like combat sports, is you'll go force to force against someone. It's a very empirical process. You might think that, oh, this should work, and it doesn't. And then you find out something works really, really well. And you're like, yes, I've figured this out. And then you spar the next person, and it doesn't work at all. And it's like you kind of get this face first into reality shock of it. And then what you tend to realize is like all your thinking won't save you because there's just too much to figure out. And there's not enough time to make the decisions. Like you don't have a lot of time to strategize. You got to make the thing work. But then another thing you realize as you train for a while is like if you've been here for a couple of months and a new person shows up, they feel like someone on Reddit described it as like it's really weird with beginners because you're like, why are you letting me hit you in the face? Why aren't you doing anything back? And the same thing with grappling. Right? I do both, but like I'm more of a grappler, like from a background perspective. But it's so much of like, why do you just give up? And like, no, I was trying to get out. Like, no, you turned your back. Like you went to your stomach. It's like that's you giving out. Like that's like really, really dumb in most scenarios for a beginner. And that is what gives you hope, I think. Or like once you've trained for a bit, you get to this position of like, oh, as long as I do this game, this unrealistic self-defense thing, where I get really, really good at wrestling people, I feel fairly confident that I could wrestle someone if need be. And the finer aspects of like, what if someone has you in a... Because, I've done some Krav Maga, and they're like, if someone has you in a headlock, now is a good time to hit the boss. I'm like, no, I'll pick them up. If they have a headlock, I'll pick them up. And if they squeeze really hard and try to choke me, well, I'm used to very, very good people. People are very, very good at trying to choke me and defending that. And that's sort of enough, rather than being like, thinking like, I'm going to learn the specific moves that are going to be super optimized to save me in this particular situation. Like what good Krav Maga schools teach, I think. Again, like I'm not a person who encounters a lot of violence, and I'm not an expert in this field, but like this is just how I look at it. It's like this whole attitude of if someone comes at you, like scream, go really hard, like really throw the first punch if you need to throw the first punch, make noise. These are all great things. When they talk about like trapping hands or something, it's like, yeah, sure, whatever you want to do for today's play, right? But you should also, all those specific things, here's the moves you should do. It would be really good for most people who don't do combat sports to try them in a combat sports setting. If I can take down an okay wrestler, I can take down your non-wrestling ass any day of the week.
So the specific moves don't matter nearly as much as just showing up for sparring week after week.
Yeah. Well, because like there's so much to learn, right? I think people get into this mindset of like, oh, I'm gonna figure this out. It's like, no, there's too much to figure out. And like it's really funny now where people say, oh wait, what did you do there with your foot? I'm like, I didn't do anything. I'm like, oh wait, no, I totally did something that I'm no longer aware of because either I learned it at some point and forgot about it and now it's just ingrained, or I never learned it consciously and I just like figured it out gradually. And that's what's going to be a deciding factor. It's like you're going to do the things that come naturally to you. You're not going to do the things that seem like a great idea when you recall your latest practice.
I feel like a good image for one of these blog posts would be Neo from the Matrix. I know kung
Yeah.
fu. It's not like that. Two quick questions. One, I think that one value, even if you're not planning on becoming proficient in really self-defense, of doing any sort of introductory or a couple of classes in of martial arts, is just learning that, oh, and this is like of epistemic value to any just nerd rationalist like myself, of like, oh, my armchair idealizing of how this would go is not at all how reality actually is. It turns out I can't just anticipate enough to be ready for this. I need to actually practice, and that sounds insanely valuable. Would you say that one of the benefits that you aim for when you try to teach like consensual violence is actual self-defense, or what is your primary aim there?
No, because I mean, I think the whole self-defense aspect is, well, it's like people come at it from different angles. Maybe like they're, I'm bullied, or I just want to get fit, or whatever. And there's all these ideas around what you want, and like one thing that happens quite a lot is people come in and they either they think about self-defense because they watch a lot of movies or something, or they've heard something about self-defense and they want to try it, or they like watch MMA or something and they have listened to a bunch of commentators about like, oh, this guy's super long and lanky, he has a good advantage, like reach, blah blah blah, like, oh, he's really good on the ground for whatever reason, and they form an image of what they think they're supposed to do. The problem is you don't have you're trying to think yourself into what you need or what you'll be good at, but you don't know anything. It's sort of like, when we choose a career. It's like you're supposed to figure out like, oh, I want to go to school for this, and like you don't really know. You know something about your ability, but you don't know what the job's like. You don't know how good you'll be at the crucial aspects of the job and whatever, and like you just kind of go into it. The best thing you can do is try to like really do some internships, like try to like do some of the actual work rather than sit there and think, I watch a lot of software, like IT guys in movies. I think I'd be good at that hacking thing. It's like, maybe, but we do get a lot of information about when picking a career of like, here's what it's actually like. Like they really try to teach you. But like with violence, like the thing, or like consensual violence, the thing that we get is not well suited to you picking an art. So my approach is you just pick one. Just like go for something that is not fake, like fake in the sense like there's no real sparring. Like if I'm talking to a complete beginner, I'll say Aikido is fake. If I'm talking to someone we're trained for a bit, I'll be like, no, there's definitely probably value to it. And I've seen people pull weird shit that they've learned from Aikido, and it's like, that's pretty cool. But what you think of when you think of fighting, when you don't know anything about fighting, from that perspective, Aikido is fake. It's not very useful because you don't do any strong pressure testing, depending on what school, but most schools, it's like there's not pressure testing. The things that you do here won't work if someone doesn't want you to do them or like lets you do them.
Right. I feel very bad about how off track I got with all this. I was hoping to focus a bit more on what you were speaking about, the spiritual and personal growth aspects of consensual violence, of just like being violent with someone else and finding those limits to your body and yourself. Is it okay if we pivot a bit more to that for a while?
Then I think, so one thing I want to answer before is like, well, what do you want to teach people? It's like the two things that I want people to walk away with. It's like, so there's a type of person who goes in thinking they're going to be good. And if you go easy on them, they'll think that they beat you. There's some aspect of like, I want to show you what it's actually like to some reasonable extent. Like, now here's actually how easy it is for me to dominate you on the ground if you've never done any grappling. But I'm not an expert by any means. I'm a blue belt, and I'm like 185 pounds, 85 kilos, and 6'1". So it's like it's not much of a question. Like I should be able to take care of anyone. So I can do that. I can make people walk away with like, hey, look, actually, here's what I can do. Just so you get a sense of like, first of all, like what's possible, but also like, don't go away from here thinking that you had a good control over me if I just go easy on you. So that's one thing I want to teach people. The other thing I want to teach people is also like start pushing that boundary of what they think they can do. Get them into the flowy situation where it's like cause some pain, like enough that I guess it's like almost like put them into a weird like headspace. It's like, oh, this is really hard, and then like sort of move on and like just challenge them a bit with that. It's like show them what they're capable of. And then also, talk to them about like the thing that you found excruciating here, like me applying what's called a crossface, like I'm just kind of pushing someone's jaw with my shoulder when they're on the ground. people will be like, "Oh, this is super," they'll give up immediately. I'm like, you can do that to me, or someone fairly good can do that to me, and I won't give up. It will hurt, and I will adjust a little bit, and it will suck. But like that's sort of the whole, like the suck is the point. So that's more, and more suffering is mandatory.
I really like that too, because
it's like, it's part of the point.
Yeah, exactly. Like part of the point of going to Burning Man is the suffering.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things like that. I think from that post, I pulled out this line, which I wanted to hit, where you said, the pain of fighting is a lot like shadow work.
Uh-huh.
What do you mean by that?
I don't pretend to know a lot about shadow work, but like,
Okay.
But I'm hanging out in Teapot. People talk about like, oh, this thing is coming up and I want to deal with it, right? They can deal with a lot of emotional pain, but maybe not very much physical pain. And that's something that's really struck me in Teapot events. Like people who are like super, super resilient in a lot of ways. But if someone accidentally walks into them, like they'll be like jarred for a little bit. Or like if someone gets mad at them or like shoves them a little bit, they'll be like, they can shut down completely. And it's like, there's sort of an imbalance there. Where like they will do all this embodied work and they know where all the feelings sit in their body, but like if something hurts a little, then it's like, oh no, wait, I need to give this my complete attention. If it's not pain that they're fully in control of, like sitting in a meditation pose and like the legs fall asleep and like things hurt, they're like, yes, but this is me choosing it. I'm not saying like it's great to walk around in a world where you can accidentally get kicked in the stomach. I'm saying if you can get kicked in the stomach and be like, fuck it, like let's keep going and keep your head in the game. Then most other random little pain isn't that jarring, or like you can choose to tune it out if you want to.
Yeah,
that's sort of the point of suffering is mandatory. It's like being as in control of your physical pain as you might be of your emotional pain.
You argue that this is just like a straightforwardly good thing for anyone to have, but young men in particularly, or just everybody?
I mean, I would think everybody, but again, this comes back to like, I'm less sure of everybody these days. Maybe it's not actually for everybody. I think people should try it for a while, because like I want people to get past the pain threshold and the panic response. Like when I started judo, that's kind of what I got started with, which is kind of a scary sport. It's not the most effective. Whatever, is not like super great for MMA or self-defense or whatever, but it is pretty damn scary. And if you go into a jiu-jitsu gym, and you say that you do judo, then people like show you a weird level of respect, because they're like, this is actually scary. It's picking people up and throwing them down, and it can kind of hurt. But I decided I was going to go 3 months or 6 months. I don't even remember, because I realized I liked it a lot sooner than that. But I would be like, I want to not give up based on the fear response. I want to get to the point where I'm like, I'm okay with these people, I'm okay with this activity, and then I'll decide. But like the first times you come in, people go like, oh mate, like, people go after one class like, I don't think this is for me. And if like you're having a complete like meltdown and you really can't handle this, that's one thing, and you know yourself best. But I can tell you the feeling of the first class and the 20th class are completely different. They're nothing alike. It's like the first time you ever write a test or like do something scary, and the 20th time you do it, you're past all the initial panic response, and now you're thinking more about like, wait, what are we actually doing? And if you enjoy that process, then you're fine.
There's so many things in life that I found that are like that, where you have to force yourself to go the first several times because it's just so fucking terrifying. But you do them enough times, and it's like, okay, this is kind of normal. I can do it now. And it's just so worth it, because a lot of the most important things to do are initially really terrifying.
Yeah. And I mean, martial arts or like combat sports are like that. Like even when you get fairly good at it, you keep kind of stepping up and doing well. The first time you do proper hard sparring, the first time you do a competition, the first time if you go that way, do a pro fight, the first time you go really, really hard. I don't know, the first time you compete in a new belt division, if it's like something that has belt divisions, it's like now you went from being at the top of the ladder to the bottom of the ladder again, that kind of thing. It's just that's sort of where choosing defeat comes in, right? Choosing defeat being one of the posts that I wrote. It's like the whole point is like you keep stepping up to it.
You know you're going to lose, and you do it anyway.
Yeah, which is what most things are at its core, or like especially most new things. I mean, choosing defeat. The picture there is me being thrown by a guy who's like national level. I was like, maybe there's a small chance I hit him with something. Like, I mean, I just gotta try something. But at the end of the day, I can't not step up because it's a competition, and that he's a guy from my gym, and like I know him, and like I I remember I thought he was going to be like, well, if he throws me, at least he's going to, like, he knows he can do it, and like he'll be like kind of pull the throw last minute rather than like really smash me. And he did not do that. that hurt like hell. But the thing is, like, it really hurt like hell. I was a little bit mad at him after or whatever. But it's like having that behind me, it's really good. And you kind of also know that it's going to toughen you, or you're going to learn something, or at least you don't want to butt out. You want to like say yes and give it a chance at least.
Yeah. I'm glad you said this earlier in the episode. I pulled it out too because I think it was one of the most fantastic things I read on the blog. You said your capacity for love is circumscribed by your fear. I really like the hippie mindset, the whole working on yourself, finding inner peace, and just feeling love for everybody kind of thing. And I'm really into it. It's really big in Teapot too. But I think you make a really good point here that there is a limit to that. And it's based entirely on your fear of the world, of, in general, your fear of being damaged. And a lot of that is gotten around in the modern world by the fact that we live in a very safe environment. We surround ourselves with other like civilized, like-minded people, and we can make room for that sort of love. But that isn't always the case. And so there's always a bit of hesitancy and like you were saying, like flinching from things, having the ability to know yourself, to know you can take this pain, that you can take this punch, you can handle yourself in some manner if things are not completely, if civilization isn't completely great to you and doesn't make that space for you to have love. The ability to be brave and to fight against that fear just gives you capacity for more of that. You don't have to be in an ideal environment to have that love for everybody. You can do it in a much wider array of places and with more people, right?
Yeah, and I think a friend of mine wrote on Twitter, he thinks a lot of people are enlightened on the pillow. I don't have that much meditation experience, so I can't really speak to it, but like I think that rings true, that there's a lot of people who are like, they seem to be enlightened, they seem to believe that they're enlightened, other people seem to believe that they are enlightened, they seem to describe a certain number of experiences that match my understanding of what enlightenment is from other sources and whatever, but like they are also super easily triggered in certain emotional situations. That's not to say that they don't feel the full ego death, complete unity with the universe on a meditation pillow, but the question is like, how much does that survive in the face of hormones just running amok? Like if you get enough shot of adrenaline and dopamine, like do you still feel that way, kind of thing? And a lot of this is like that too. Like there's a lot of physical contact in Teapot events, which is nice, but it's often very, very circumscribed. Things that are very clearly non-sexual or something, where like you can just move a person. Like I'm very happy to like move a person out of the way if I'm like in a bar or something. Hey, sorry, like tap on the shoulder, and they're like, if they're a bit too much, I'm just gonna be like gradually move them, not in a very aggressive way, but very clear, like just gonna move their shoulder in a way that I can get past, and be like, sorry, dude, I just need to get past. Like that kind of touch that is like more than a handshake or an occasional hug or an accidentally bumping into each other or something. Anything more than that can like put you off a lot, and the fear of that can put you off a lot. I walk around being like, I'm not afraid of what anyone here at this entire camp would do to me. Like there's no, I have no, like, I mean, also being a man, right? You know, just like sexual violence against me is like one thing that's doesn't happen a lot. So I understand that. So I'm not pretending that's not a problem, but it's also like, I'm not afraid of physical violence. I'm not really afraid of any sort of violence except maybe emotional violence, right? And that gives me more freedom to move about the world. And that freedom is inherently good.
Yeah.
Is my point. I can feel safe in more situations.
Yeah.
I don't think I
extend courtesy and generosity to other people in more situations.
Yeah. I don't have to worry that much about like what someone's gonna do. Like if someone's getting really, really angry or mad, like I have a friend who has like episodes. I don't think I've never heard of him hurting anyone, but he can get scary, and I can just stay with him. Like, I mean, it doesn't matter how much he stares me down or if like he's screaming into the void or something. I'm like, well, push comes to shove, there's just nothing he can do to me, right? Because I wrestle with him, and like I just know that he's not an actual danger to me, and that means I can stay not just push down on my emotions and rationally tell myself, no, he's probably not actually dangerous. I can stay here. I'm like, there's no flinching to it, right? I can just be very, very, keep my breath and just not miss a beat.
Why is this still good for people who aren't like 6-foot Vikings? Because some people are going to be doing a lot of training and sparring and really get in contact with their physical body, but they still won't be able to, be confident when their friend is going nuts like that they'd be able to take him down.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I mean, people always look about you can beat everyone up. Like, no, I'm like, there's people like at that last vibe camp who could totally beat me up. At this vibe camp too, I think. I don't remember exactly who was there. And like, as much as you think that I like, there's this sort of like invincibility aura to me at these events, it's like absolutely not. I constantly engage with people who could kick my ass. That's how I get better, right?
And if I'm walking, someone gets lucky.
Yeah, and and I walk around here on the countryside, and like there's these fucking like people with a shit ton of muscle, and like they look extremely strong, and I'm not, even with what I know of fighting, which isn't that much in the grand scheme of things, I don't necessarily feel like super chill about whatever they can do. Mm-hmm. But in a teapot event, like I'd be like, do you train anything? And if the answer is no, then it's like, well, then there's nothing I'm worried about physically from them, right? Like, of course, like status, like network effects, like gossip, whatever. Of course, it's like damage someone can do to me, but like this aspect of like, it doesn't matter if you get really, really mad suddenly. I don't flinch at that. That gives me more freedom to be direct with you, for example. It gives me more freedom to like be calm when you're being aroused, that kind of thing. Because I don't have that initial fear response, or I don't have a suppressed fear response. Mm-hmm. That other people can tune into. It's like, well.
So one of the major advantages then is that it gets rid of that latent background fear, that insecurity.
Yeah, I don't think I put that in the blog post. The thing that triggered it that I didn't put in the post because it sounds like so small and like weird and petty, but I remember very clearly when this thought occurred to me. I was walking my dog in Berlin, probably had a couple of beers, like fairly late at night, and a guy comes up to me, like obviously, like, I don't know if he's tweaked or something, but like, I live in a neighborhood that's, has a fair amount of like drug users. It's not like this isn't fentanyl times or anything, but it's, this guy's probably like might be homeless or something. And he goes, "Can I borrow your phone?" in German, right? So it's like, I'm speaking a language I'm not super familiar with, and he goes, "Can I borrow your phone?" And I'm like, "No." Well, like, why? It's like, "Well, I need to call my friend." And he looks like he means it. And I take stock for a second and I'm like, he's wearing a heavy jacket. He's 5 inches shorter than me. If he's robbing me right now, he can pull out a knife now. It doesn't really matter. If he moves or does, like, says, like, puts it in his pocket and be like, "No, I don't want to give it back," like, he'll be on his back in 2 seconds. Like, I don't have any problem with this guy. I could take stock pretty clearly. And like, if I'm wrong about all this, then kind of fair game. It's like being like, my priors here are really low. If there's a 0.1% chance that this guy can actually overpower me somehow without a weapon, or like if there's a small chance that he has a weapon, he's going to pull it anyway. Like, when I just like combine the probabilities and the outcomes, I'm like, I'm not risking that much. And if he gets away with my phone, despite all that, then it's not the end of the world. So I'd be like, actually, yeah, you can totally borrow my phone. And of course, like he just starts walking away. And I'm
like,
my
God.
And he was literally just, I laughed at it. And he was like, "Oh shit." Like, he was literally just tweaked, being like, looking forward. He was talking to his friend. It's like, "Wait, where are you?" And he started walking down the street. I'm like, "No, dude, you stay here." And it became kind of fun. And we laughed about it. And it's like, nothing about that situation would have happened 5 years ago. I would have been, "No, sorry, I can't." And I probably would have been like frozen. My awareness would probably have closed up a little bit. Whereas now it's like the situation was almost comical to begin with, and I could help him immediately. And it was just this very, very clear instance of like, oh, I don't have to really think twice.
Yeah.
Or I have to think twice, but like, I can think twice and then go, "Yeah, you can actually borrow my phone." And he found his friend, and I imagine he would have wandered around for a while there, trying to borrow a phone if I hadn't done that, right? I'm not advocating life-changing moments are going to happen. I'm advocating that you're going to move around the world in a different way. You're going to be able to do small act of kindness in a weird way. You're going to be able to stay in situations longer. Like, if the vibe is getting weird in a room, but you have a reason to stay there, you can stay there slightly longer than you otherwise would have, and maybe you misread the vibe and it resolves, right? So you just have more. It's sort of like, the difference between most men and women. Like, men can move around more freely in the world, which is a good freedom. It's actually very nice. It's a privilege, right? this is like just adding more to that privilege.
Yeah.
But most situations are like, no, I'm going to get robbed by a fentanyl addict. At least here, it's like, no, someone's going to get a bit too rowdy, or like the bar where I live, like some angry patron is going to say they got the wrong change, and like that can get annoying. Like that, it's like I don't fear for any like much from other people in my daily life almost at all, which is just a nice feeling. But then of course, like I'm not stupid. I'm not going to walk down the subway and pick a fight with everyone who's talking to themselves. Like that's not what I'm advocating.
You say it also gets rid of the micro insecurities that a lot of people sometimes don't even know they have.
Yeah. And I think that's the same thing. I don't know. I don't know what this is. Maybe someone else can diagnose it. Maybe someone is more introspective than I am. But it's like, it is weird how you can kind of tell if someone's been in a couple of fights, or at least been in some very, very dangerous situations. That's sort of like what you described with Steven, like this sort of groundedness, well-adjustedness maybe. But also this like, I mean, a lot of guys walk around thinking that they could win a fight. A lot of girls walk around with like a shit ton of moxie and be like, well, I'll just kick someone in the balls. And like, if they truly believe that, they move around the world in a different way, in a positive way.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, I think the benefit of that might be larger than the potential danger most of the time. But I think for a lot of like the nerdy types, especially like if you've been bullied or something, you kind of have that in you that's like, you know, something can go wrong. And I know something can go wrong. I've been like attacked and threatened with like lethal violence when I wasn't very good at defending myself. And also when I was like reasonably confident in my ability to defend myself. So it's like, I know that's a thing that can happen there, but I don't fear it from someone who's not like a gang member or something.
What do you think is the most substantial personal, psychological, spiritual, whatever benefit that someone would get from pursuing consensual violence for a number of months at least?
At the very least, you're gonna get a lot more comfortable with a lot of more physical situations. You're gonna be flinching less. At best, you might find something that you never knew existed, or like that you knew you needed. You might find that there's something primal about it that you've suppressed or been denied throughout your life. And the only way to find that out is to go and try it out as long as you need to get past the initial fear responses, and hopefully like make some friends, and that will keep you going for a while.
Do you think society would be more well adjusted if all young men did this?
Yeah, I think at least to a certain age. I think it should be on offer. That's the most important thing. I think there's plenty of like wrestling energy, like bubbling around little boys, and especially, but also little girls, and I think they should be wrestled with now and then, just to see if it's actually something that they need. Might not be for everyone, might not be forced upon people, but we definitely live in a society where a lot of people can go almost their whole lives, or like their whole adult lives, never exploring this, and then be like me, that they find out when they're 28, holy shit, this thing that I've been mocking, that was all just like, what's the psychological defense mechanism when you like go to the other end? It's like, oh, the extreme, like no, that's stupid, and that's just like a primal urge that has nothing to do with any of my civilized rational brain. You might realize that like, oh, it was a defense mechanism, and actually this is really good, and it doesn't make you stupid or a meathead. Quite the opposite.
It's awesome. I have one final personal question, but before I get to my personal question, Steven, sorry you haven't talked much in the last 15, 20 minutes. Did you have any questions or anything to add in?
No, I felt like I did a big, large share at the beginning. I guess, what is the best context, in your opinion, for learning like consensual violence in a way that is actually productive? You know, like I think the karate McDojos are probably not the place. You know, you mentioned most Aikido dojos are not the place. If someone wants to get like the proper benefit from this, where should they look to?
The first post on my blog is called Choose Your School. It has a handy little flowchart that I didn't make, but someone else made, directing you away from the more ridiculous stuff and into the more combat sports stuff. The most important thing is that you pick one. If you want to try boxing, go for boxing. If you want to try Muay Thai, try Muay Thai. If you want to try judo, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, do that. If you find an MMA place, like they'll have all those classes too, probably, or you can practice MMA immediately. It might not be the best way to learn necessarily. People's opinions differ on this, but I think try something for a while and then stake out your path. For most people, like I don't know where your listeners are, but if they're in the US, there's a good chance that there's a jiu-jitsu school, BJJ school around them. Very good. There's no punching to the head. You'll get exposed to live rolling, like fairly intense force on force sparring very quickly. So it's useful. The problem is that it's kind of expensive. All these sports have their different benefits. But honestly, like, pick the 2 places nearest to you. Honestly, you just want to go, like, you don't want to spend an hour commuting. Pick the like 2-3 places nearest to you. Go check them all out. Do a vibe check if they do 1 or 2 trial classes. If they don't do trial classes, then usually I would say don't go. Like, if you're in a super rural place, then, maybe sign a contract and see if it's for you, if you can afford it. But usually go and do a vibe check do a couple classes, and then pick the one you like most, where you like the people, especially. Because if you do any of these things, you will improve. You will learn a bunch of stuff. You'll get a lot of the benefits, and then you can think for a second if you want to start adding stuff. Like, I started with judo, which is like not super useful for any of my current goals, but like it damn well got me started, and I really like the group I trained with back home in Sweden. They kept me going for a lot of it.
That's awesome. And that's a really, I think, one of the subtle pieces of advice there that I think is maybe overlooked too often is like, find the places close to you. Because the best place might be 45 minutes away, but like in reality, that means you won't go that often. And so be practical. Look at the place that's 10 minutes away that you can actually make it, a concerted effort to go to 3 times a week.
Yeah. What often happens, like, is people, the same thing as with weight training, people go on YouTube and they immediately go down a rabbit hole of like the optimal way to do hypertrophy or something. It's like, no, well, you're a beginner. The optimal way doesn't apply to you. No, like, stop. Like, don't care about this. And the same way, like, if I talk about the benefits of various combat sports, first of all, I'm not an expert. And second of all, like, it really doesn't matter that much. What I want to keep you out of, mostly for beginners, if they're adults, is I want to keep you out of like things like Aikido, Ninjutsu, Wing Chun, Krav Maga, or, something there's a good chance, there's a decent chance that you will go there and you'll spend a lot of time never sparring anyone or never hitting anything hard. And I want to make sure, like, you go and do something that feels like actual violence, like hard grappling, maybe not hard boxing sparring necessarily in your first like couple of months, but at least you're punching a bag really hard, like you're punching pads very, very hard, like you're trying to generate force and you're trying to overcome resistance. If I can get you in there, then you can decide for yourself what you want.
Awesome.
Like, if it's like, oh, I think Muay Thai is better than classical boxing because recent ABC that you found on YouTube, like, doesn't really matter. Doesn't matter as much as you think. Anything that's an actual combat sport is going to do most of the trick.
Don't let the analysis paralysis of like, which of these dozen options do I pick?
No.
Slow you down. Just
grab one. Just grab the place that feels nice, that you feel like, try a few and pick the place that your gut says, I would like to come here more often.
We'll definitely link to your blog, drunken.substack.com, which is a great URL.
Drunken Masterpieces. Yeah, I was really surprised it wasn't taken. Did I tell you the reason behind the name? It's like, I'm having a beer here now, so it's fitting. I kept, like, when drunk or like, at parties, like, the issue of combat sports would come up, and it would be a lot of ranting. That all tended to be the same, and I was like, I should just write this down so I can like point people to like, oh, like I said in Fighting Fear, or like, you should check out this, or you should check out that, and I can just kind of link stuff instead of just keeping repeating. So that's like, well, like Drunken something. Oh, Drunken Master is this old kung fu movie, I think.
Yeah.
And then Drunken.substack was not taken, and Drunken Master lends itself to Drunken Masterpieces, and I want to do podcasts at some point, and then I'll call them Drunken Master Classes, and it's like just a perfect. It's a very good name.
Nice.
I'm very happy
Love
with
it.
the name. I don't know if it's a good name, but it's a good URL. I'll defend that.
Awesome.
My final personal question is, about 4 years ago, I had a major back injury. It was awful to the point that I don't know if it would even be worth continuing to live if it had stayed the way it was. But fortunately, nowadays we have surgery, and the surgery itself, it was grueling 2 years recovery after that. Like, it was bad. So now I have this fear of any sort of like any real violence. Like what you're saying is like, go to any one of these classes, doesn't matter which, as long as there's actual sparring and actual force and resistance and stuff. Like, get in there and fight people. And I have this fear, like, what if I re-injure my back? I might have a life that's just not worth living, and maybe they could fix it again. But God, I don't want to spend another 2 years of my life in recovery from that shit. Like, how likely is this to happen? Should I actually avoid it? Am I too worried about this? What can you tell me?
talk to your doctor. Like, no, but like, well, I guess the problem with talking to your doctor might be that, like, doctor. I mean, I've had doctors who, like, I'll be like, doc, when can I do sports again? Like, yo, what sports? Like judo. It's like, never. Don't don't ever do that, because
Hmm.
they're an orthopedist, and like they
Yeah.
like orthopedist doesn't think you should do judo probably.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, yeah, the risk of injury is real. I don't know exactly what happened more precisely.
What happened was that I was doing squats underweight and just bad form. And
You roll over your
my
neck.
no, it was my lowest disc between the L5 and the S1. It ruptured, and
Fuck.
I needed surgery to get pieces of it out of my spine eventually. Like it sucked.
Oh, that sucks.
But yeah, no, it was just doing squats underweight with bad form, and years of bad posture and not taking care of my spine really. So it all added up. Yeah, now I'm worried, like, anything, if I get thrown and I land badly on my hips or something, like it's permanently weakened now, right? Like, could that re-injure that?
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. I mean, so I mean, if I were you, I would try for a bit boxing or jiu-jitsu, because boxing is like, you're not gonna fall a lot. Like your back is not gonna. It's one of the sports where you never get thrown,
Okay.
which might be a good thing. And then kind of, but like, make sure, most of all, make sure you find a place that, like, is very, like, if you come and tell them this, they are very, 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 like, okay, first of all, like, you're probably gonna have to sign a waiver and whatever, but
Mhm.
they're also very trustworthy with this, because I mean, like, the most good jiu-jitsu places, for example, will be like that you absolutely don't have to spar, or like
Yeah.
boxing,
Well, I mean,
you don't have to spar, and they will let things come very slowly, and they'll pair you up with people who can go easy and be careful about specific things,
okay.
that kind of thing.
I do want to spar because you make it sound awesome, and I've been very much convinced that grappling is extremely important based on how often you can't avoid it.
Yeah, and like, you tell your coach, it's like, really, like, hey, I have this problem with my back, and I need to start easy, and then we can see and, like, work things up. Um, that might be good. But I mean, one thing I will say about wrestling and jiu-jitsu and that kind of thing is, like, I think it strengthens a lot of the musculature around those areas.
Mm-hmm.
That might be in ways that might be useful if you can avoid injury. I'm very, like, even my lifting is very much, I want to avoid injury
Yeah.
to when I do martial arts, or
Yeah.
when I do combat sports. But like, if you look at good form, like, what you do in wrestling is you're turning, and there's sheer forces and whatever, right? But I don't know, like, you do a lot of bracing, I guess. Like, the first times you do wrestling or jiu-jitsu or judo, like, you're gonna find muscles you didn't know existed,
Yeah.
because, like, you're working all these little things in your torso, which might be useful. Might strengthen around your lower back, or maybe not. Talk to your doctor. Like, I'm not saying, like, it's great, but like, I definitely think there could be benefits to it,
Yeah.
and there's definitely benefits to, like, learning to move around your injury. Jiu-jitsu is the one I should recommend, because, like, it's cerebral enough that you can nerd out about it for a bit. It's one that's professional enough that, like, the odds of you being thrown in with some young buck are fairly low, because, like, there's, like, things like boxing and judo, depends on where you are, but like, that could be more like a association sport, like, no one's getting paid, it's not a professional situation, it's just like a club
Yeah.
kind of thing, even for adults. Whereas jiu-jitsu is like, hey, this is a business. It's pricey, like businesses are, though, but you can start on your ground, you can go fairly far without using any explosive force. Very old people can do it quite well. And my advice to everyone, especially beginners, is like, the most important fight is fighting injury. Don't get injured. Tap early. Don't do a bunch of weird shit. Experiment responsibly, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because there's so many avoidable injuries. Like, most injuries are avoidable. They're usually come about through ego, or like going really hard. And like, I know a lot of people who are very good at keeping that in check, and they do not get injured as much. I mean, you can, like, dislocate fingers and shit, but like, that's nothing serious.
I think you put it well too, with especially like BJJ and stuff like that. Like, somebody knows what they're doing isn't going to hurt you.
Oh, yeah.
Or will be less
Yeah.
likely to. Whereas if you're on the mat with some noob, they might fuck you up, and especially if you're have some tender areas or something you want to be careful of. Practice against people who know what they're doing.
Yeah, and you can tell people. So in BJJ, you have stripes on your belts. Like, oh, I'm a 1-stripe white belt, 2-stripe, etc. I didn't get any stripes. I walked around with no stripes on my belt, and there's quite a few times people have just been like, no, I don't want to train with you, and that's totally fine. It's a little bit like, hurts your ego a little bit, like, but I've never done anything like weird or blah blah blah. I'm actually kind of careful. But people are like, I don't know you. you're really new, you don't have any stripes, maybe they have a bad back, or maybe they're like older and like they're just worried about injury, and like that's absolutely fine. So there's a good deal of like Hollywood actors and stuff that and actresses too who do BJJ, but like they can't get hurt, like they can't get scrapes in their face, they can't be injured, blah blah, blah, right? It's like if they can't be on set, like there's a lot of money at stake. So they just do a lot of time. They just do privates apparently with like a coach, a black belt, right? It's like if you go with the strongest or like the most advanced person in the room, they won't hurt you.
Right.
Like the most of the injuries happen, or like things can happen.
Yeah, that's why you would like to watch the white belts go at it.
Yeah, exactly, because it's fucking entertaining. But it's like also like like I was saying, like me and that coach, we were looking at each other because so many times we're like, oh, that, yep, they seem fine. That could have ended badly, but didn't, because usually it doesn't end badly. But I mean, there's an injury risk. Be careful, but talk to your coach, and if you're like talk to your doctor and your coach, and find a place where you feel like you can trust the coach, I guess. Especially if you find a place with like a lot of like old dudes and especially if a good deal of women, that's a good sign. Or like even smaller people, that's a sign that they can train together.
I would feel really bad like sparring against a woman or a small just dude. Like,
bring it, man.
Yeah, I mean,
well, I don't count. I don't think of you as a small dude, Steven. Like, I mean, I guess I don't know if like 5'8" is below the average or whatever, but like,
I think it's average-ish. But you've got like 5 inches on me.
Well, sure, yeah, but like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think in the beginning, yes, no, maybe. I think it's fine. Like, it's if a woman is fairly like, if you trying to remember how large her, but like if you go with a purple belt woman, you might be surprised what they'll do to you.
Okay, cool.
that could be, but it's also like I mean, when I started judo, like there'd be small women in my class. Like I'll be like go there for the first time, and like I'll try to be careful, but like I can throw them. Yeah. They might be good, but I can take them down, and they sure can't take me down. Right. You just need to figure that out, and then be like, oh right, so I don't have to be a douche about it. I can let them work, let myself be thrown, try to be technical with high throw, and like, but that's also a learning process, which is also a good part that I haven't written about yet. Like you learn to be a good partner to people, because it's like there's no fun in just keeping smashing someone. Yeah. It's a very like dual thing. It's like a dance, but it's not pure cooperation. Like you're not really trying to figure each other out, like doing exactly what the other person wants you to do or so on, or like feeling just completely emotionally just feeling into the person, or like feeling what their ability is. It's also like there's a cooperation of force. It's like can be like playing a game with a child. It's like, well, how do you adjust your level so that they think it's fun? If it's a game of strategic skill or something that you could outshine them in, because you're 35 and they're 6, right?
Yet another advantage of the consensual violence, you get to learn how to read people better and be a better partner.
Yeah, and self-reflect on that, because like the biggest hindrance to that is usually your ego. You're like, oh fuck, I don't want, like, or someone's watching, I don't want them to like see XYZ, right?
All right, well, we have to wrap up. Run.
Yeah.
Drunken.substack.com.
Yeah, check that out. Subscribe if you like it. Please comment on stuff. Like I kind of writing into the void right now, because like I said, a lot of it's just my rants, so I can like link them to people.
Thank you for talking with us. Oh, are you going to be at the next Vibe Camp, do you think?
So this can be next year in June. Probably, yeah.
Okay. Well, in that case, if people are interested, there is a guy that you now know who can who is going to run a quick class, show you some of these things, bring some clothes that you don't mind getting dirty and maybe getting wrenched around a little bit, and fucking come to Vibe Camp next year.
Yeah. Preferably start training before that. You don't have to wait until Vibe Camp. Find something near you and get training, because then you can be like, oh, I've been training for a year. You want to do some drills? Then I can be yes, which is a lot more fun for me than working with complete beginners too. So don't wait for Vibe Camp.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. This has been great, and we'll see you next year and maybe talk to you again sometime between now and then.
Thank you, guys. Yeah.
Thanks again.
Fun.
Bye.
Bye.
Steven, welcome back.
Thanks, Inyash.
We are going to hit our less wrong posts, but before that, you know what we always do.
We got to give a shout out to our friends at the Guild of the Rose.
Why do we give these people a shout out? Why are they our friends?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because we partner with them, because they're a rationalist organization doing with similar efforts to what we have. If you haven't heard of it, somehow, the Guild of the Rose is a vibrant community dedicated to personal growth and self-improvement. It's got a unique system that blends practical life skills, mental and physical wellness, and rational thinking, and the Guild offers weekly workshops and supportive cohorts to help you achieve your full potential. Related, I'm actually attending the hedging workshop this Sunday, and I think there's still time to sign up, so go to the Guild of the Rose,
excellent.
sign up, and it's just a 1 hour thing from 10 Mountain Time to 11 on Sunday, so...
What is hedging about?
I'm glad you asked. Why don't I grab the description from their official thing? Hedging is a workshop to learn practical decision-making strategies for managing risk in everyday life.
Oh, well, this sounds really cool.
Yeah.
God damn it. I'm not going to be in state. Otherwise, I would totally take time out to attend this thing.
Ah, man. But yeah, this is fun. So like there was a decision theory course, which is available on YouTube. You can find through guildoftheRose.org as well. It's one of those things where you have to like look for ways to apply it. Matt does a good job about pointing at ways to apply it in real life, but I'm curious to see what this does. I probably make more risky decisions in my everyday life than I'm aware of, and that'll be fun to figure out.
At next episode's Guild of the Rose promo, you can tell us briefly about it and what you thought.
I sure will.
Excellent. Go to guildoftheRose.org to sign up.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the Less Wrong posts then.
All right. Well, first up, we've got heat versus motion.
Okay, this one was interesting because they're all interesting. I feel like I start way too many of the Less Wrong posts. This one was interesting.
It's the trap of a lot of them being so interesting.
It really is. How dare he write so much interesting content? But it reminded me, we all know that heat is just molecular motion, right? But people did not know that in the past. But near the beginning it says, suppose you'd separately studied kinetic theory and caloric theory. Because he's talking about how before we knew what heat actually was, there was a theory of how things move, the kinetic theory, and theories of why things are hot, caloric theory. You know now something about kinetics: collisions, elastic rebounds, momentum, kinetic energy, gravity, inertia, free trajectories. Separately, you know something about heat: temperatures, pressures, combustion, heat flows, engines, melting, vaporization. And this just it kind of miniature blew my mind reading that, because you look at those and yeah, that's all of motion is that stuff that he said, like collisions and gravity and inertia. And it has absolutely nothing to do with heat. And then you read the heat things and it's like temperature and pressure and melting. And I'm like, yeah, none of that has anything to do with motion. My God, of course people thought they were two different things. Why would you think anything else? It's just intuitive that they're not the same thing.
Yeah, and later on he goes on to talk. He gives some examples about like what moving is, and we have different words for heat and motion because they mean two different things. Heat melts things, and motion
moves things.
Yeah, things going from place to place and changing position and yada yada. He uses this example because I think the previous post was angry atoms, and he says that this was a much simpler example of reductionism.
Have you heard the recent Sam Harris podcast?
Yes.
The one about consciousness?
Oh, you know what? I don't know if I finished that one yet. I thought you meant the one that came out like a few days ago about politics stuff.
No.
No, I haven't listened to consciousness one yet.
It's kind of what I expected, which is why I put it on to help me fall asleep.
Wow.
But I know, I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. Whatever it takes.
One of the times near the beginning of when I was, going to fall asleep, and so I was still the words were still filtering into my brain. The philosophy professor, I think he was, that he has on there, literally says, there's no way for feelings to arise out of just atoms and motion. And I was like, oh my God, he's literally right this day and age talking about the whole angry atoms problem, that, atoms don't have angriness. And it was just so interesting to see that almost 20 years later, there's still people who are, legit tenured professors struggling with angry atoms.
Yeah, now I'm curious. So the guest was Christoph Koch, and I'm going to listen to this now because I'm really hoping Sam pushed back on that. Because the response is, of course there is, because it does. Right?
Well, Sam did not push back very much, but there was so much they were talking about in a very broad scatter thing. I don't think he had a chance to push back on a lot of things.
Yeah, Sam, I think he does the world a service by making his podcasts actually constrained. Some of the longer ones can run over 2 hours, but he doesn't do the Joe Rogan or Lex Friedman thing of just talking for 7 hours, which, gives people a chance to push back on literally everything. But yeah, well, some philosophers are still confused.
Yeah. But sorry, yes, back to heat and motion. Did you not also, like, when you were reading that, suddenly realize, oh my god, they are such two terribly different things, and how crazy is it that we somehow figured out that they're the same thing?
I didn't have the mind blowing thing at least as much as yours. Like for me, it just really painted a picture for why it is valuable that we have two different words for these two different levels of abstraction.
Okay.
Like it wouldn't make sense to talk about, I happened to be driving when I was listening to this post. And so, I wasn't thinking about my car's movement from my house to the gym in terms of, heat flows and pressure and temperature and stuff. Right.
Yeah.
Even though all of that is happening, I was thinking about it more in terms of things changing places, which is what I was trying to do at the time. So like it's illustrative. I think the hands and fingers really is my favorite example. Like if I was trying to think of like the easiest way to to explain reductionism to somebody, I definitely wouldn't go here. But he's doing deeper. He's trying to talk about like, this is a follow-up to angry atoms, which is like, all right, how do we get high level stuff out of atoms? Hands and fingers are still at least all big enough for us to see.
Right. I would definitely start with hands and fingers, and then I would move on to heat being motion, because that's the part where I feel a lot of people are right on the border. I'm certainly right on the border of understanding that, because it doesn't feel intuitive to me. Like, I know that heat is the motion of molecules, but, well, I guess we'll get to the last line that I pulled out at the bottom. But like, I couldn't tell you exactly how those two translate between each other. So he's saying, imagine you are one of these people in the 1800s or whenever it was, where they have both kinetic theory and caloric theory. A physicist from the future comes along and tells you, where there is heat, there is motion, and vice versa. That's why, for example, rubbing things together makes them hotter. Then he posits two possible people responding to that in the way that he talks about both angry atoms and hands and fingers, and whenever people fight against reductionism, these are the two most common things that he says he runs into. Thinker number one says, nonsense, the words heat and motion have two different meanings. That's why we have two different words. Heat is concerned with change of substance, whereas motion is concerned with change of position and shape. To say they have the same meaning is simply to confuse yourself. Which, I mean, it's true that we have two different words, because on our macro level, they address two different observable phenomena, but that doesn't mean that they don't reduce down to the same thing in reductionism if you go deep enough. His answer to that is, you can say my beliefs about heat and motion are not the same beliefs, but it's possible that actual heat and actual motion are the same thing. It's like being able to acknowledge that the morning star and the evening star might be the same planet, while also understanding that you can't determine this just by examining your beliefs. You've got to haul out the telescope.
Yeah, I have nothing to add.
Yeah.
You've got to just go out there and look sometimes, Thinker 2 comes back with a retort that I think is worth digging into for a bit.
Yes.
Yeah, so Thinker 2 says, impossible. It may be that in our world, heat and motion are associated by bridging laws, which that's always a red flag for me.
Okay.
I mean, that's the same sort of, hand-wavy bullshit you get when it's like, well, how does the brain interact with the soul?
Right. Yeah.
And so it
bridges the material with the spiritual.
Yeah. Something, pineal gland.
Antenna.
Yeah. So there may be bridging laws, so that the law of physics that motion creates caloric and vice versa. But I can easily imagine a world of rubbing things together does not make them hotter, and gases don't exert more pressure at higher temperatures. Since there are possible worlds where heat and motion are not associated, they must be different properties. This is true a priori.
We run into this thing a lot, don't we? Where people say, because I can't imagine a possible world, that means something. I mean, I'm thinking specifically, since we're coming up hot on the zombies thing, where David Chalmers and a lot of zombie proponents say, I can imagine a world where people are down to the atom identical, and yet they are not conscious, and therefore that is something important to know. I'm thinking also about Bentham's bulldog, and a lot of ontological arguments who say, well, I can imagine that a god is a perfect being and perfect beings exist, therefore that means something. Like, just because you can imagine something does not say anything about the real world, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I looked up just to confirm, because Eliezer mentions in the post, Hillary Putnam, once we've discovered that water in the actual world is H2O, nothing counts as a possible world in which water isn't H2O. It's conceivable, but it isn't logically possible. Conceivability is no proof of logical possibility.
Yes.
I remember there's a thought experiment about an opposite Earth where water is, instead of H2O, it's XYZ, and everything else is the same. And I actually came across this argument recently when I was talking with Claude about actually some of the anthropic arguments discussed by Bentham's Bulldog. And long story short, well, actually, one quick footnote. I was disappointed just now to learn that Hilary Putnam wasn't a woman, because historically women don't get a lot of contribution to philosophy, but Hilary was just a guy with a girl's name in the 70s. Anyway, like the idea that you could have opposite Earth where H2, where the thing that they say is water is actually this other substance, but the rest of the universe works the exact same.
Right.
Like that, but the thing is, like, that's totally imaginable.
I mean, I can imagine a lot of shit.
Right. So I think that's the thing, is like philosophers talk about like logically impossible and then conceptually impossible. And that's not, like, if something is conceptually possible, it doesn't mean that it's actually possible. Like a logical impossibility would be like all fruits contain sugar, an apple is a fruit. Apple doesn't have sugar. That would be a logical impossibility, right?
Okay.
And so I can't even conceive what it would mean for all three of those statements to be true. So like that's the kind of like just like boring ass logical proof. But I can sure conceptualize, a fruit that doesn't have sugar in it, right? Assuming that first statement was true. So it's one step past like logically impossible. But I think philosophers often get bogged down in like the next step, which is like, okay, but is it actually possible though? Is it actually possible to have a universe with beings like us, where when you put gas in a container and then heat it, that the pressure doesn't rise?
Right.
What would it even actually mean to heat it if the pressure wasn't going up?
Yeah.
It's not clear to me what that means.
I mean, at that point, you aren't talking about real things anymore, I guess.
Yeah.
I have yet to find a good way to talk to people who say, because I can't imagine it, therefore it is something that must be entertained.
I'm sure there's some more clever version of this retort, but something along the lines, you might just say something like, "Well, I can imagine a world where this conversation doesn't continue."
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's rude and dismissive, and I don't think that's actually helpful. But if they're insistent on that point, or you could say, "I can imagine a world where what you're saying is impossible." So clearly, us being able to imagine stuff isn't really a useful crux here.
Hopefully people will learn to do that less as they become better rationalists, perhaps by going to Guild of the Rose classes, or perhaps by reading sequences more. Who knows?
Or maybe even listening to this podcast.
Or maybe even that, yes.
There's one line in here that I wanted to grab, and I won't rabbit hole us on this too long, but it's something I've been thinking about for quite a bit of the last few weeks, and maybe I'll write something long at the end of it. But Yudkowsky says, suppose tomorrow's physicists stepped forward and said, our popularizations of science have always contained one lie. Actually, heat has nothing to do with motion. Could I prove they were wrong?
Yeah, that kind of got me. Because, no. I don't know. Well, I don't know.
I think I've rubbed two sticks together long enough and they made fire. I don't know how you'd explain that without the motion being somehow responsible for the heat,
Yeah, but then you could say something like, there's a law of physics that when two things are in motion against each other, they create caloric, which is, the property of being hot.
Yeah, I mean, in that case, yeah, then I don't know how to respond to that person. But the rabbit hole that I'm going to point to and not dive into is like, actually, you mentioned Sam Harris earlier. He mentioned this same bit years ago. Nate Bargatze is a comedian. And years ago, he had a line about how he's like, I'm dumb. Like, if I was transported back in time, I'd have no way of convincing them I'm from the future. And it occurs to me that, like, I really don't either. Like, unless I was allowed to bring my stuff with me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know enough history to be able to be like, oh, yeah, this king's going to die on this day or something, right?
Right.
And so I'm like, well, I do know, like, a smidgen of science. Like, could I actually demonstrate anything? And then I'm thinking about, like, the stuff. I said I wouldn't dive into this hole, but I'll dive into it later. But long story short, I don't know. I think it's a much harder task to prove you're from the future, like, depending on who you get to talk to and how much you know. But like me knowing that light bulbs can exist is not enough for me to demonstrate that I know anything, to somebody 300 years ago.
Yeah. And even like so much of the science that we do is dependent on so many other things that even if you did know how to do some science and how to do some experiments, you couldn't necessarily do it at all. There's a old sci-fi book called Janissaries by I think it was by Pornell and Niven, old masters of sci-fi back in like the 60s, 70s. But basically, some American Vietnam soldiers get thrown into a medieval society. They are doing great as long as their bullets don't run out, but they only got the ones that they brought with them. One of the guys that gets thrown back is a great deal of scientific knowledge, and he's basically trying to create some sort of primitive gunpowder. He does manage to do it by the end of the book, spoiler alert, but he basically calls it his Manhattan Project because it takes like so many resources and gathering up like sulfur from mines and collecting manure or whatever and getting these people to like find a way to distill it. Like, he doesn't know exactly how to distill it. He knows the basic things. And so like it's a months-long project just to get some really crude basic black powder that you can like put in a cask to get it to blow up. And I couldn't even do that. But regardless, like what could we do? Like, try to recreate the scientific process and start with early experiments with primitive tools, and maybe we could do a few little tricks to impress people. And they're like, yeah, that's great, but the court magician can make frogs disappear.
Yeah, me being able to like make a magnet with a copper wire maybe wouldn't be or with a copper wire into electricity wouldn't be all that exciting if the magician can, like you said, pull rabbits out of hats and stuff. Yeah, well, I'll have to think about it.
Yeah, it's a really good line because I'm sure with the internet and an afternoon to research it, I could find out a way to maybe prove that they're wrong, maybe. And I certainly couldn't do it if it was, just left to my own devices. And that sort of means that I don't entirely completely understand it at the basic level, right?
Oh, I definitely don't completely understand it at the basic level. Like,
okay.
It's a drag because I know enough to take an AP chemistry course, but like I don't know enough to just of like the base level science. I might grab this last bullet point here because I think it ties it up really well.
Great.
He says it takes a great deal of detailed knowledge to get yourself to the point where you can no longer conceive of a world where the two phenomena go separate ways. Reductionism isn't cheap, and that's why it buys so much.
It's a great line.
Yeah. I think he's spot on there. And the things I wanted to highlight was, again, the detailed knowledge. Like, I have knowledge of these things, right?
Yeah.
I know some stuff. I could call bullshit on some people's proposed experimental outcomes or something, right? If they were if it was like a multiple choice test or something. But I couldn't, immediately tell you like how I would, unless, depending on what kind of excuses the scientists are allowed to come up with, I think that the stick thing might prove them wrong. But yeah, I'd have to think of more experiments. It does show that, like, yeah, just knowing the high level stuff isn't enough. If you really want to understand the nitty gritty, it does take a great deal of detailed knowledge.
Yeah, and I do think this is a thing that will cause people to sometimes find less enjoyment in fiction. Once you have a certain amount of knowledge, I believe Eliezer in one of the earlier posts talked about a story he read where what was it? Matches wouldn't work anymore when the guy got transported to a different world. And he was like, that breaks all of atomic physics. And if matches don't work anymore, you can't breathe anymore.
Right. It was something like, phosphorus doesn't behave the same or something. And then he's like, that's the same, like, stuff that's responsible in is it ATP? One of the chemicals involved in metabolism of your cells.
The P in ATP is phosphorus.
Oh, there we go. You knew more. You knew more details than I did.
Okay,
but yeah, that's another one of those things. It's like, yeah, I can conceive of a world, surely, right? This author clearly did. They wrote a story about it, but you can't just have that and have everything else be the same and pretend like it's possible.
Yeah,
right. If you want to say it's just magic, sure, magic, anything goes.
It can be frustrating. I think this is why world building is so important to rationalists, because if you write a story in a world that just like flat on its face is like, how could this even possibly work? Like, where did these people's food come from? It kind of breaks the story for you. The more you know, the more people have to work hard to make a story seem believable to you, I guess.
Yeah, and it also depends on like how much of the enjoyment of the story comes from the world building. Like in the canon Harry Potter series, the Weasleys were poor and they like literally had struggled to feed their family.
Yeah.
And it's not clear for why that would be true for any reason, right? But that wasn't the point of them being poor in the original story. Like, it was to have, a poor class of person to counteract the Malfoys, and
I guess
have the Weasleys also be from humble backgrounds like Harry. But MOR delightfully gave us an awesome answer of like, oh yeah, you can't transfigure gold because the goblins will kill you, and you can't transfigure food because it'll turn back into what it wasn't before, and that'll kill you. So like, those are really good answers, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah, I agree. I think to the extent that the enjoyment of your story leans on the world building being good, it's essential.
Yeah,
that's what makes like reading Ratfic so much fun. Is like, did they think of this? Oh fuck yes, they did. Look at that. That was awesome.
Yeah, I don't need people to think of everything, but just like sometimes when something would so obviously not work at all, it kind of throws you out of the story.
Yeah. I mean, and that's one of the most fun things of Worth the Candle is, our protagonist is always looking for holes and ways to munchkin. It's like, no, the world designer thought of this too. And when they didn't, they fix it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. But back to the Let's Wrong post. Yes, as he says, reductionism isn't cheap. It's hard to know these things, and that's why it's so powerful.
Yeah. And then we've got a fun second post here. Brain breakthrough. It's made of neurons. And there isn't much of this. It's a fun, short news press example of, well, go ahead and you take the reins.
I only pulled out one quote from one bullet point from this post. It was, "We have found an enormously complicated material system located where the mind should be. The implications are shocking and must be squarely faced." And basically the post is this. It's a lot of people shocked to find out that the place where people think and where that affects their personalities and their memories and stuff looks to just be a whole bunch of little itty bitty tiny cells that are connected to each other with even smaller little tendrils. And how the fuck is that possible? What the fuck does this mean?
I mean, and I think there's a few things to take from this post, other than like just the funniness of what it would mean for this to be a headline. But one of the interesting things is that, like, to me, if I'm the person reading this headline, I believed that the brain was an organ much like maybe the liver or something. And now I know it's made of smaller stuff. Well, what difference does that make to me, right?
Yeah.
It's made of smaller stuff. Go on, keep being a brain. So like from the outside, it stays all the same, right? Yeah, I don't have much else to add on this one. It's a 2-minute read. It's funny.
Yeah, I guess it's supposed to help put us in the mind of people who don't believe in materialism, I guess, who then find out that the mind is just made out of a material artifact.
Yeah, and I mean, the second to last paragraph, much of the work remains to be done discovering the specific identities between electrochemical interactions between neurons and thoughts. Nonetheless, we believe that our discovery offers the promise, though not yet the realization, of a full scientific account of thought. The problem may now be declared, if not solved, then solvable.
Nice.
To me, what's funny about that is that this doesn't actually get you that much further. Maybe that's a joke. That's one of the jokes in this post.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Saying, hey, it's made of smaller stuff doesn't actually help you figure out where do thoughts and if I've got one big ball called the brain and I say it has thoughts in it, and then someone says, no, that big ball is made of smaller neurons. I'm like, well, there's still thoughts in there, right? Yeah. All right. Well, how does that work? Well, we still don't know. I mean, the only thing I can tell you is that it's part of the brain and not all of it at the same time, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, that's it for this one. Next week, or next episode rather, we've got reductive reference and zombies. Wait, zombies? Did I say that correctly? First, zombies has an exclamation mark. The second one has a question mark.
Yes. I'm glad we're about to get into these because these are some of the most crazy hair-pulling things in my opinion. The people who believe in zombies.
I'll do some extra credit research and figuring out what do people like Chalmers and stuff have. How do they reply to this sort of zombieism argument?
Okay.
I mean, because the argument against it is so fucking clear that I don't know how they still come up with this. So I'm going to try and find the newest, best arguments in favor of zombieism. And
excellent.
I'll bring that to the table next episode.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Speaking of appreciation, Huge shout out this episode to John O'Neill.
John, thank you for supporting us. We really appreciate it. We appreciate all our listeners, and this is why we give an individual listener a shout out in each episode.
Yeah, thanks for kicking ass and bringing this to everybody. Hope you guys liked it.
Hell yeah. That's it. That's the end. Steven, thanks. Thanks for joining me.
You bet. Thanks, man. I'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
Have a good one.